this is a parallel to a lot of the like organizations like the CIA, the MI5, and all that sort of stuff, because the linking up of the technology also has an information sort of sharing and stuff.
Right. That was an attempt at hybridizing science, meta-science, and wizardry, outright wizardry. So every nation in the last 1,000 years had its wizards on the books.
Yeah.
They have not been labeled that, but they were all on the books. They just weren't allowed to be public about it, because that was the overall agreement between all of the major off-world civilizations here. We're never going to publicly show our technology. If you publicly show your technology, we're going to come after you. Yeah. And we're trying to place agents everywhere whose purpose is just to look for people publicly showing technology.
Yeah.
Because we're maintaining a 1,000-year belief system plan.
So, like, the X-Files is like a modern-day expression of that, potentially.
Yes.
It's like, you're displaying your technology, we're going to sort of shut you down, sort of thing, and put you into a, in a scientific sort of study, to understand what you're doing so we can use it. Or we'll take your DNA and harvest it and all that sort of stuff,
Yep, pretty much, yep.
And, but all those sort of, like, all the sort of government institutions that would have priesthood and wizardhood also had like a secret police sort of thing for information and surveillance and population control, and then obviously taking a step up in the hierarchies, each sort of government was linked to the dimensionals and stuff. So yeah.
Well, here's where we got to put solely some responsibility to Rome, the city of Rome, not necessarily the papacy, but the city itself.
Yeah.
The city itself is built on the place of the rape of the Sabines, built literally on the place of the Etruscans, built literally on the place that had all of Roman history around it.
Yep.
Okay. And all that belief and all that incarnational energy with the obelisk from Egypt that is there. That obelisk is technology. Okay?
Yep.
100% technology. The other obelisk is in London, which is its own mini city, Whitehall. The city of London is just like the city of Rome. The city of Washington, D.C. has the third one, and it's just that way. It is its own nation.
Yeah. Free trade region within another company sort of thing.
Yes, but there's much more esoteric long-term belief of the off-worlders behind it, because that's what represents the off-world governing systems and awareness and unawareness.
Okay.
So, because that's the awareness-based technology. Those, if you have access to the esoteric value of those obelisks, you can know the belief potentials in the whole world. You can use those obelisks to help you scan and understand who's incarnating, who isn't. It gives you a tremendous amount of informational access when you practice with it over long periods of time and have it connected to multiple ley lines and grids like they've done.
Okay.
So to focus down a little bit, Rome being responsibility, it is what is holding the karmic debt of what the system is doing by creating war. And so it's accounts receivable. The military arm United States is creating karma left and right,
yes,
and consuming karma from London. That's the commodities that's sending it out.
Yes.
That is the vicious trade cycle of the Babylonian money curse, rapid trading, etc., to fund the negative energy for the negative things to be done in the seen and the unseen world.
Okay, yeah, that's a big word I've sort of overlooked in this, the karma, because like karma is a trade, So say you're a being that's like incarnated into 1,000 beings, then you, as the oversoul, accrue the karma of all those fragments. And
right.
So you've talked many times, like people like Stalin and Hitler are people that have been gestated into the reality to accrue a lot of karma for the whole oversoul of the being. You know, the scale of stuff they do is actually accruing karma to free up the rest of the soul shards, so to speak.
That's right.
I mean, like, why don't we sort of link the wizards and karma and the priesthood then? Because they're obviously aware of it, you know?
The Babylonian money curse is technically what hijacked the universal law of karma. And this is probably the first time you've ever heard me relate it this way.
I appreciate it, but it's good to have you actually express it, that's for sure.
So it is the Babylonian money curse that is hundreds of thousands of year refined placebo-based technology that crosses the forgetting of the birth canal. That's the technology. It figures out how to cross the forgetting of the birth canal. Once they organized it in nonlinear time, tested it, proved it's worked, and figured out how to disunionally link the whole reality together, once they did that, they had fully capable archon systems that could use the Babylonian money curse as the new way to be incarnated, meaning your astral cities could no longer predict the future the way the Babylonian money-cursed astral cities could. And you have all these future generations that are in astral cities who, if they go to these other things, their lifetimes don't work, but if they come into the Babylonian money curse one and they figure out how to use the system, it works for them. They resolve the karmas they need.
Okay, that's a pretty good overview because we can obviously get into that further. Like this is all about the overview of the internet and the awareness of how important that
But the internet is fully about allowing the soul to feel like it's trading its own karma through chat rooms, through social media, because it's changing its 1 degree of separation. Yes, there are many situations where one chat room meltdown is two generals from 9 billion years ago battling out their karma. That's all the time.
Yeah.
The internet is about karma. It's about giving the power back to the person, and them still in their unawareness have no clue that they've taken back the power, so another higher being can use more of their power to raise themselves above you, so you never actually ascend up. Because you never completed your karmas, because you're giving it away to another being who's creating your future through the Babylonian money curse.
Yeah, and you've also talked about sports, like the big sporting things are a way of expressing karma, like without war and stuff.
Yes.
What I was going to say is, like, I was reaffirming the focus of this chat, but then I was actually going to ask about specifics of those 3 obelisks.
Uh-huh.
I haven't personally heard you talk about them in great detail. Do you want to, like, obviously they were sourced from Egypt, and there was a lot of appreciation of them for the control and karma and that. How did that all come about then?
So those 3 obelisks were, let me give it the right English. When Atlantis knew it was going to fall, it made contact with some founder-type beings to come in here and set up a grid of protection so they could go through their cyclical destruction. Because they were trying to reintegrate themselves back in time, and they needed a higher density society to manage the celestial frequencies of time and stop other celestial frequencies of time from invading during their downtime, because this has been practiced long before celestial reorganizationing of time. So they brought these founder beings in who set up a technological defense system through the solar system. And this is where, you look at David Wilcock, Corey Goode material where they talk 300,000 years ago, blah, 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 founder species. It's much more ancient than that. They set up a grid here that was protecting through time. so that the Atlanteans could reemerge after the destruction and then once again build their society back up with the help from the Hollow Earthers. Well, they got their ass, stabbed in the back by the Hollow Earthers because new beings had come in during the destruction, changed the rules once again, similar to what we're just talking about, but at a different scale and a different size. And then the Atlanteans, as they began reintegrating, the Lemurians, who were also leapfrogging through time and were waiting from a time beacon from the Atlanteans of when they could leapfrog in time and reintegrate and begin to have children again so they could get a regular reincarnation process. The Lemurians began leapfrogging through time and discovered the beginning of the Babylonian money curse astral cities versus these other astral cities which they were expecting to tell them where to go and find the Atlanteans or the Hollow Earthers that were there for them to be the ancestral link, because you can't be in the astral city and cannot be on the surface of your out-of-time being without an ancestral link on the surface or something in extinction.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I get what the significance of these astral cities are because they're linked to the ancestral on the surface. And then if they're hijacking the ancestral with the Babylonian stuff, then there's no foothold at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you had entire immigrations of Atlantean time-traveling light, like billions, who suddenly had no astral city to go to. So they ended up going to the other 65 planets in the Galactic Ascension machine.
For a proxy sort of incarnation. I use proxy because it's like, it's a fallback.
They're still resolving karma. They're still resolving karma one way or another. Because the Galactic Ascension machine takes in all karma in concept.
Yeah, so it's like a disaster sort of recovery, if I use the computer sort of sense. If the primary site's down, it's like fall back to the secondary.
You can go to Mars, you can go to here, you can go to there. It won't be that bad.
It's just a detour. But so these obelisks, I mean, what era, was it the third Atlantis that you're talking about?
Yes, the 25,000 to 10,000 year era, BC.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where they would have erected this. And this is where the three obelisks would have come in. That would have been for the priest wizard class of that area to pass on as the Atlanteans became time traveling back in. That priest wizard class chose not to because they were influenced by the Orions and the Draconians to become their own power elite class. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those
there was a total appreciation that we're not going to save this reality. The incarnation war is going and stuff. So they created these obelisks.
So they created these obelisks as a way to raise the density of the world, to allow more of the Atlanteans to time travel in, more of the Lemurians to time travel in, to allow more of the natural love frequencies to stop the time travel wars, etc., etc. The priest class that received that technology from 25,000 year to 10,000 year BC, they backstabbed the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, so they created their own thing, and that represents them essentially taking the mantle of responsibility from a higher density being and putting the middle fingers up and saying, we're stealing your technology.
Yeah. They delegated the control, and they abused the power for their own means, which totally distorted everything in the hairball enormously.
Yes, and the three obelisks existed only solely in Egypt, which was a representation of the new central headquarters of all breakaway civilizations or off-world civilizations would have to work under a fourth density concept, meaning they're all no-time beings, and if they work with an in-time being, they have to say they're a no-time being, which fundamentally changes the rules for false light beings. Right, which is a technology which it was trying to be reintroduced at that era too.
So from a incarnation like aspect to this priesthood, they're obviously perceived as a great target for takeover, because this sort of concept was sort of planted into the frequencies of the reality for future sort of ancestral links to reclaim the earth sort of thing.
Right.
And,
so this higher density society, we'll just call them in the 7th density level, they were greatly offended that the Egyptian priest class weren't going to honor their deal. And right away they realized that the Egyptian priest class shared this technology with other hollow earth beings who were mid 4th density beings. And this is where their own laws of one, sovereign spiritual laws, where they had to ride the fine razor's edge of what they could do. They made a mistake in trust and discernment, but they still didn't want to continue to interfere because their interference there, they could have said no to the Atlanteans and the priest class then and say, we can't help you, you have to do it on your own. But they decided to help. Okay?
Yeah.
And when they decided to help is when they realized all of this other time travel shit that was going on. So they, being a higher density being, suddenly became aware of all the other subtle stuff that was going on from the celestial bodies who had made a celestial honeypot that had trapped these higher density beings to invest and involve with these beings to try to make a change. And then their rules of non-interference, were those that came here, you had other blue beings or Andromedid, something to that effect, who tried to come here during the Atlantean times and empower people when the pyramids were still going on. But ultimately, the Babylonian money curse had taken over so much of the belief system that the power of the off-worlders was so reduced here because there was no faith power.
Yeah, yeah.
So the 3 obelisks represent, they were the original Illuminati class, King Solomon, all, you can relate many histories to that, but it goes back to that 26,000 year mark. So that represents the 3 powers, one in each area, which is, being the ability to perceive the 7 future generations, perceive the 7 previous generations, and perceive the present generations at a spiritual, contractual, and technological basis based off of what souls are trying to create, what they're going to want in the reality. And if you have access to that information, you can chart the course of beings through fads, through technology, through weapons, through war, that accelerates a time plan for this group or this group to come in, and all of a sudden their plans that were thousands of years in wait don't work when they come in.
Yeah, they're like incarnational focal points, and they've been hijacked to be in alignment with the Babylonian money curse, which obviously you've said has a basic energy relationship to the karma. And then to set up for failure to maintain control. Brilliant. I'm fascinated about these 3 obelisks, as to what obviously they were perceived as sort of a great sort of anchoring for the future, I'll use it, a light density sort of potential. There must have been enormous amounts of consideration for their creation and a lot of energy intent and stuff. And then, their discovery and decision to deploy them in certain regions, in the actual production of these obelisks, the particular, substances that are in them and ceremony and stuff. There must have been a fair bit of effort that went into them.
Yeah. So I am sending you a link, a wiki link, so you can understand what's in Rome. So the tallest one, it's just 32 meters. It's in Rome. Tallest obelisk in Rome and the largest standing ancient Egyptian obelisk in the world, originally weighing 455 tons, from the Temple of Amun in Karnak, and brought to Alexandria with another obelisk, Constantius II, and brought Constantius and brought on its own from there to Rome in 357 A.D. to decorate the Spina, or Circus Maximus. Yeah. So the Circus Maximus is a place of massive death energy, found in 3 places in 1587, restored in approximately 4 meters shorter, blah, 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 blah. In 1580, placed in the equestrian statue of Marcus Aurelius, which is another hijacking of the belief system, what Marcus Aurelius was, which was moved to the Capitoline Hill, which there is represented its current versions and weighs, it says, 355 tons. It's basically refinement of the technology.
Yeah, wow.
Now, let me get you...
They really, like really establish Rome, like, as an anchor point sort of thing, with many obelisks. And, you know, like, they even talk now that they can't even move, like, 100 tons sort of thing. So 500 tons, it's like they would have used technology to sort of...
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like...
140 AD. They moved to 455 ton 455 ton obelisk from Egypt on boat to Rome from the port 90 miles inland.
Up hills and stuff, you know?
Exactly. So here is now the obelisk in London. So go ahead and click on that. Cleopatra's Needle is a popular name for each three of the ancient Egyptian obelisks re-erected in London, Paris, and New York City during the 19th century. These obelisks in London and New York are a pair, and one in Paris is part of a pair originally from a different site in Luxor, where a twin remains. Although all three needles are genuine ancient Egyptian obelisks, their shared nickname is a misnomer, as they have no connection with the Ptolemaic queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt, and were already over thousands of years old in her lifetime. The London and New York needles were originally made during the reign of the 18th dynasty pharaoh Hasphonep, who was an alien. The Paris needle dates to the reign of the 19th century and is for Ramses II, who was an alien. And the New York needle was the first to acquire the nickname La Aiguille de la Capuchitra in France, and it stood in Alexandria, place of wisdom. The London needle is in the city of Westminster on the Victoria Embankment in the Golden Jubilee Bridges, near the gold. So it's right there in the town of London.
Or the city of London. The city of
London.
Right,
the city of London, yeah.
Yeah. And so then obviously, like, America was set up, and one was deployed here. I don't want to take away from the whole detail of this, because that I'm actually writing notes maybe for future conversations and stuff. But what you're sort of linking up is like many threads to the focus of the reality of the 20th and 21st century with the internet, and it's like it goes back. Like with many of these components and structures, like the wizards and the obelisks, and deployment of like the Babylonian money curse and all that sort of stuff that relate to the reality now.